Words matter, especially when they decide who is welcomed and who is written out. Recent remarks by Joel Weinshanker have brought that power into focus. This is about who decides who belongs in Elvis Presley's life.
There is a moment when commentary stops being descriptive and becomes something else entirely. When reflection gives way to judgment, when discussion is no longer about history, but about deciding who is entitled to it. When language begins to sort people into those who are deemed legitimate and those who are quietly dismissed. That shift deserves careful examination, because once we begin assigning moral value to who may speak, who may remember, and who may earn an honest living connected to a legacy, we are no longer talking about Elvis Presley. We are talking about power. I would like to address a recent interview given at Graceland on January the 8th. The interview was given by Joel Weinshanker, the managing partner of Elvis Presley Enterprises. Mr. Weinshanker is entitled to his opinion, and I acknowledge that without reservation. I am also entitled to state my position plainly, not from a position of authority or control, but as part of the blood family. However, opinions that use language such as parasites to describe people connected to Elvis Presley or to suggest they are living off a dead man go beyond commentary, and they move into judgment. It is ill-advised to assume that such judgments are for any one party to make, which raises a moral, fundamental question. How does the one becoming the authority on who knew Elvis, who mattered to him, and who is permitted to speak? Is authority determined by ownership, by proximity to an estate, or by relationships formed later and filtered through other people's perceptions? I ask this respectfully because it matters. There was also suggestion that people who did not know Elvis personally, yet earn a living in connection with him, are somehow less legitimate. That framing would have puzzled Elvis. Elvis understood that not everyone who contributed to his legacy would know him personally. He never required personal acquaintance as a condition of respect. Musicians, promoters, writers, archivists, and fans all played a role in sustaining what he built. What mattered to Elvis was not proximity, it was intent. He believed there was enough to go around, enough work, enough opportunity, enough room for people to participate honestly in what his life and music created. Elvis did not see admiration or professional involvement as theft. He saw it as continuation. The idea that only a narrow group may speak, work, or earn in connection with him is not an idea that came from Elvis. Much of what is repeated today about Elvis's family does not come from direct family involvement. In some cases, it comes from secondary narratives shaped over time. That includes perceptions formed through Lisa Marie, who was loved deeply by Elvis and by our family, and who was an important part woven into our lives. As a child, she spent time with the family, often alongside Danny Smith, sharing the ordinary mischief and closeness of growing up together. But it must also be acknowledged that Lisa no longer spent regular time with her father's wider family. From her early teens onward, her understanding of those relationships was necessarily partial. Distance shapes perception. That's not a criticism, it is a reality. When the phrase "people close to Elvis" is used, I find it necessary to be specific. So let us begin clearly. Let us start with me. I am Donna Presley. Elvis and I were first cousins. We shared the same grandmother. I grew up within the Presley family. My mother was a spiritual advisor and a close relative and loving presence in his life, a trusted presence in his life. That is the context from which I speak. It should also be acknowledged that my place within the Presley family has, at times, been questioned for reasons unrelated to fact. I carry the Presley name by family request. My mother asked me to do so, with Elvis's full support many years earlier. The reasons behind that decision are private and will remain so. From time to time, allegations have surfaced about my character, including claims of criminal conduct. They are completely untrue. Assertions of that nature were spoken or published constitute slander or libel. They warrant caution. It is reasonable to ask whether this helps explain why I am absent, why I am not present where my cousin is remembered, why my place within that story is left unacknowledged, and why in practice I am treated as though I do not exist. From there, it is necessary to look at others within the family whose voices have been reduced or set aside. The Smith family are often sidelined in modern retellings of Elvis's life. Yet Billy Smith was Elvis's first cousin on his mom's side, and for many years was extremely close to him. Billy spent significant time with Elvis, both privately and publicly, and holds a serious body of knowledge about his daily life, routines, and state of mind. There were points of tension later on, and differences that affected how his role was viewed. That does not negate his proximity to Elvis, nor does it erase the historical importance of his account. His narrative remains essential to any honest record of Elvis Presley's life. The same narrowing can be seen with the Stanley brothers. They entered the family as children after Elvis was already an adult, following their mother's marriage to his father. They lived just behind Elvis's home and were part of the wider family environment around him. After Elvis's death, later narratives affected how the Stanley family came to be viewed. Over time, that shift narrowed how their place in the family story was understood. Despite that, they had been present during a meaningful period of Elvis's life. They knew aspects of his daily world that were private and familial. That knowledge does not define his legacy, but it does not vanish from history either. The phrase "making money off a dead Elvis" is also worth examining carefully. If that is the standard being applied, then it must be applied consistently. There are many individuals, institutions, and businesses whose livelihoods are built entirely around Elvis Presley's name, image, and legacy. By that definition, the category would be very broad indeed. And it would certainly not exclude those who manage, promote, and profit from Graceland itself. Which brings us to the central issue. This is not about money. It is about authority. Who is permitted to speak, who is encouraged to remain silent, and who is quietly erased. My presence and the presence of others who knew Elvis personally appears to provoke resistance that is never fully explained. It is reasonable to ask why. I have not sought to replace anyone's role. I have not claimed ownership of Elvis's legacy. I have simply refused to disappear. History is strongest when it allows room for multiple truths, when it recognizes business, preservation, memory, and family without demanding that one cancel the other out. Elvis Presley was not only a cultural icon, he was a man, a family member, and a human being. Those who knew him as such do not require permission to remember him. They do not deserve to be dismissed for doing so. I am a Presley, and I stand. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And until next time, God bless.
Language can erase, silence can enable it. But history does not belong to gatekeepers. Elvis Presley's life was lived in full, and it will be remembered in full.